Oh boy. Greetings, Vault Hunters all across the 6 galaxies. Welcome to the Bordercast. We're live again at our usual time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. I'm Mitsu.
And I'm Tess, coming to you every week to break down all things Borderlands.
You know, Tess and I, we love talking about all things Borderlands, but man, it's been a bit of a dry spell, a little bit of a lull. And that means with a little bit of news, it means it's a lot of time to talk about certain things that have been community focused, community conversations. So with that in mind, perhaps it's time to discuss that article.
That article. It's a good article that Mitsu wrote. And it's really, really awesome that there's a medium available for him to write it on.
Literally called Medium.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm going to put the link in chat for you guys. But yeah, definitely go check it out if you haven't already. We've talked about it a little bit, but not in detail. So that's what we're going to do.
Yes. Along with updating everybody on the small amounts of news that we have this week. No hot fixes, no wild events planned for the moment, other than, of course, Triple G's event, which I'm very excited is going to be happening very, very soon, actually, if I recall correctly. Yes?
Yeah. So I was totally okay. I feel really bad actually about this because I was like 100% going to participate, but my mom is coming to visit.
Oh.
And it's partially my fault because I literally, because I haven't seen her in like almost 2 years or something because of COVID, because we don't live in the same state. And so it's just, yeah, I basically told her like, whenever you can come. And she called me yesterday and was like, so I bought tickets. And I'm like, okay, for when? And she's like, it's the weekend of the 1st. And I'm like, okay.
It's just that one time.
Yeah. Right. I just can't. I'm probably still gonna do like one stream that weekend because I always do one stream, and it'll probably be like a late stream, so she'll have like gone to bed. But I don't think I'll be able to properly participate. But I will be cheering on everybody that does, and I'm sure we'll talk about it on the podcast, of course. And I'm so excited to see my mom. I miss her so much. So, yeah.
I know that feeling. I will not be able to participate either, only because I finally, for the first time in a year, will be actually able to go up to Canada to see my wife.
Yay! That's so awesome.
Yes. So I will, of course, be cheering everybody. I'll be reporting live from Canada over the course of the next couple of weeks. I'll be missing, unfortunately, next week's show, but I'll be able to talk about all things Borderlands from up in the Great White North afterwards, which is going to be very exciting again.
Yeah.
Although I don't know if we'll have her on the show. We never have, but you know, maybe in the future for Wonderlands one day we'll have her come on. Awesome. That'd be really funny.
That would be really cool.
I mean, Borderlands was a huge contributing factor to why we even got together in the first place. So
yeah, that's sweet. That's really sweet. Yep. Yeah, it'll just be, I'm sure she's gonna be really happy to see you, but I'm excited for everybody that's getting to see their families. It's so nice. It's so nice. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind few weeks because my dad came to visit. It's been 2 weeks now. It feels like it was yesterday. Because since then, I've just been like doing things and doing stuff and going places, and it's just it's weird. It's like the world woke up again. It feels good.
Yeah. Now let's work on keeping it that way, please, and thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I was actually really happy to see not in all of the places we went, but in a lot of the places we went, people are still wearing masks inside and everybody's being safe and washing their hands and all that stuff. So, and I think a lot more people actually in my state, there's definitely a lot more people getting vaccinated. But you know, hopefully that just continues everywhere.
Yes. And before we get into that anymore, as we like to say, let's take a minute to thank our new listeners on iTunes, Spotify, etc., and those watching live on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Steam, or later on the VOD on YouTube. If you are enjoying the program, we would love for you to give us a big old like, follow, or favorite, because I write good. I swear. I don't talk good, but I write good. Which none of that is proper grammar, by the way.
It is a really good article, I promise. You guys should definitely check it out.
Borderlands movie. It's happening. We've talked about it quite a bit here, but again, much like the actual game, mum's the word around the movie set. Although they've wrapped up, but like nobody has been talking about it recently. I'm a little sad. I was so used to this constant stream of the pictures and the little teasers information and all of these things, that now that it's kind of over and they've wrapped up and everybody's gone their separate ways, I'm like, oh man, I really wanted to hear more about it. And the only thing that we've really gotten solidly is that everybody are like best friends now, which is cool. And then that Claptrap looks like Claptrap. So that's also really cool.
Yeah, I would love more tidbits. I wish that like that it could be somebody's job to just like dole out tidbits of little bits of news and images and things like that. It's probably unrealistic to wish for that to be somebody's entire job, but it would just be cool to have more stuff, basically, because the movie's not here yet, and it like will sustain us until then. But I'm sure the cast and everybody that worked on the filming process of it is getting a much deserved break. And I'm sure the editing process has begun, which is always very in depth, I think, no matter what you're editing, but I can't even imagine for a whole motion picture. So
I think the industry term I've heard a few times is they call it going in the tank.
Yeah.
And so hopefully Eli is, well, first of all, hopefully he got a good night's sleep for once, because I only can imagine what it was like being out there for as long as he was. Hopefully he's, afterwards, and he got his nice, well-deserved rest. He's in the tank now and editing and doing post-production stuff and having a good time doing it. I saw this over here in the YouTube chat real quick, and I thought this was really funny. Somebody called it Clapjack. And I think I like that better for Jack Black than Jack Trap, because Jack Trap sounds like a claptrap that has Handsome Jack's voice.
Yeah.
And that would be horrific.
Yeah, that would be kind of terrifying. Jeez.
Yeah, now you're thinking about it, right? And you're like, wow, that's horrific. I don't ever want to think about that again.
Yeah.
Mitsu, you're horrible.
No, thank you. Yes. Anyway, Maurice's vending machine has moved once more. Thank you very much, Mental Mars, for letting us know it is located in Devil's Razor this week. So go get you some cool stuff, because there's cool stuff there. Thank you very much, Mental Mars. If you guys want super awesome updates about Borderlands and Wonderlands, mentalmars.com is a really great website where you guys can get all that stuff. Sheriff Pyric hanging out in the chat saying, thank you, Mitsu, for more cursed ideas for art.
That wasn't what I was going for. Oh, no. Wasn't there a claptrap that was wearing a Jack mask? I feel like I remember seeing that at least once. I forget where. It would have to, well, I mean, it would have had to be our claptrap, so maybe not.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know.
Because now I'm just thinking of like what is it? Hammerlock's DLC in Borderlands 2. Because they had that entire tribe that was dedicated to Handsome Jack. That was horrific. So imagine this, oh boy. And then you have the scrap trap pile. Yeah. Does this mean there are more claptraps out in the world? Because that can't be the only trash pile in all of existence that has active claptraps in it.
There's got to be more. There's got to be. Yep. That's a terrifying thought, actually. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Apparently, I'm just like nightmare fuel today. That's like my lot in life, I guess.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. So we were going to talk about the article.
Yeah.
But first, what were you up to this week in Borderlands?
I did my vault card stuff, and that was about it. I haven't done a ton in Borderlands this week. I played a little bit. I did play a little bit, and I was happy to like get that done. But I've been going outside a lot. It's honestly like since my dad came to visit, I haven't done it in so long. Even before COVID, I feel like, I mean, I go for runs every day, but like I don't go anywhere. I basically just stay right here in my little bubble of awesomeness and play Borderlands and stream Borderlands related things and some other stuff, keyboards, etc. But there's been a lot going on in my life just the last couple of weeks. So my dad came to visit. We went and met him at the beach. We did something called e-foiling, which sounds really weird, but it's actually just kind of like surfing, but it's motorized, and you have like a little trigger controller. And it's not really a surfboard, but it's kind of like a surfboard. It has like this crazy fin that lifts out of the water, and there's a motor. It's insane. My instructor called it the sea Segway, except it's much harder to ride than a Segway. But really, really cool once you get the hang of it. So I was really happy that after my little 2-hour lesson, I could actually stand up on it and not fall off, at least for a little bit. But yeah, it was very, very fun. I want to go again. They're like insanely expensive, but the lessons are not that expensive, surprisingly. So yeah, that was cool. And then I came back and we drove up to the mountains for a day, which I haven't seen mountains in like 2 years. It was so nice. We climbed one. It was just amazing. And yeah, what else did I do? We're going stand-up paddleboarding soon. That's gonna be fun. So yeah,
That sounds like fun.
just been doing a lot of outside things, all compressed into a couple of weeks because I have a feeling that come like September with all the launches of all of the games and all of the things, I'm gonna get really busy again. So I have like a tiny moment in time, but I still got a little bit of Borderlands in because I kind of have to. I love it. So,
Yeah. To bring that around a little bit too, Wonderlands is, I mean, we heard the announcement for it, but we really haven't heard much information. And PAX is coming up very soon, and I know Mr. Pitchford, Randy, he has a penchant for PAX. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be any information dumps or reveals at PAX this year, which I will be going to for those of you out there in TV land who are going to be in Seattle this year from September 2nd to the 6th, although I'm leaving on the 6th, unless I change my days. I will be wandering around Seattle, going to my favorite bar, and also, I guess, a convention. That's important too, right? Like that's the reason you're supposed to go for work, I guess.
I mean, in theory, but also if you just enjoy going to things, that's okay. That's allowed.
Yeah.
Think,
I mean,
right?
you were there, remember?
Yeah.
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 Just walk in and take that place by storm. Oh boy.
Yeah. Sorry, I just opened something and it opened across multiple monitors at the same time. I don't know. It's fine. Totally fine. Anyway, I was just double checking that we had the trailer handy because the trailer for Wonderlands is amazing. And in case people haven't caught it, maybe we wanted to show it off.
I certainly am not going to complain to watch that trailer again.
Here you go then.
Do it up.
Fate. It soars on the wind. It rises from the grave. It stalks the ocean floor. You cannot hide from fate. But you can make your own.
So good. I love it so much. It's amazing. I'm just so incredibly hyped for it. I can't even begin to explain. I forgot to mention that I actually started a third D&D style show. It actually is D&D on Wednesdays. So it's a new campaign on a channel called Kobold Press. They actually put out books for D&D, and so I've started a campaign. I originally did a one-shot for charity with the same group, the same DM and everything. And I played this turtle character who's like really sweet and happy and just optimistic, and also happens to be a death cleric. It was great. And yeah, and it was a very good sort of group of people, and it was a great one shot to do. We all really enjoyed it, and we were all like, let's please make this a longer term thing. And so, you know, it took a little bit of time to put together, but now it's a thing. So that is on Cobalt Press on Wednesdays. And yeah, just like playing D&D and seeing trailers for Wonderlands, just it makes my heart happy. Like I know it's not the same universe at all, but the same spirit. Okay. And it's just so cool, and it's going to be such an incredible experience to make your own characters, to hear all those amazing voice actors like and talk to them while we're playing the game. I'm just so excited. I'm so excited. I could show that trailer every single Bordercast and be happy.
That I believe. I know back in the Twitch chat asking, isn't Will Arnett the voice of Batman? Okay, let's hold on a second here. First of all, there's only one voice of Batman, and that man's name is Kevin Conroy, because he is Batman. That's the end of that. Second of all, yes, he also is the voice of Batman, Will Arnett, in the Lego Batman movies. So yes, but not really. But he's going to do an amazing job as, I guess, a very smarmy... I think he's supposed to be the bad guy, right? He's the Dragon Lord, I think is what his official title is, or something like that, right?
In theory, yes. We don't actually know, but yes.
No?
Well,
I mean,
it appears to be that way.
Yeah.
But I am not assuming anything, because it's Tiny Tina. Okay. It's all the crazy stuff that goes on in her wonderful, crazy brain. Excuse me. And I'm just living for it. I'm so excited, and I believe that anything is possible in this video game because it's Tina, you know. So yeah, I'm just psyched, and I'm not gonna assume anything. Just gonna be pleasantly surprised when it gets here, which I hope is soon.
Well, yeah, I think we talked about that very briefly. It would be a very interesting twist if the dragon, because they promoted this Dragon Lord as the bad guy, but who knows? It could be, the Dragon Lord maybe has a change of heart halfway through, and there's a secret big bad who's an actual big bad that we've got to deal with. You know?
Who knows, right? Huh? And the other cool thing is it's a full game. It's a whole new potential franchise, hopefully, right? So there could be DLC that comes out for it. Anything is possible. There's just so much potential there, and I'm just like, my heart is like, yes, give peace soon.
Even melee combat is possible.
Yeah.
That's melee what everybody keeps talking about, so I had to throw it in there.
Yeah, of course. I've seen that too, actually, a bunch on Reddit. A lot of people talking about melee combat and what that's going to be like, whether or not it will feel at all similar to like what Battleborn melee combat felt like, which was actually really good. I don't know. I have no idea. We have no idea. But I would assume that it'll feel amazing because, I mean, it's Gearbox, right? They know how to do it well. So I don't know if it'll feel at all similar to Battleborn, but I'm sure it'll be good. So I'm just excited. I'm excited for the magic and the magic effects. I fully expect Moxie and many others to break PCs all over the place. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. No, but I'm very excited to see like the art for this game in general, because it's still very much that like hand inked style, but completely like fantasyified. That's totally not a word, but I'm using it. Fantastical magic and creatures and locations and all that stuff, and clothes and all the characters and your character design. I'm just, give it to me, please, soon. If you can't tell, I'm just a little bit excited about this game.
I like the purple.
Yes, the purple is so good. Yes, it's actually a very, very good point. I need more purple clothes.
Somebody was telling me where I want a more purple shirt Mitsu. I think there it is. The Don Man was like, I want more purple shirt from Mitsu. I'm like, oh god, I thought my branding was scarves. I guess purple shirts is also part of the branding too now. So, well, sure. I'm sure my wife will not complain. So, I definitely want to get into this, but before we talk about that, this PS Week in Borderlands for me, I had a nice opportunity to go back and revisit the game that I love so much, Borderlands 2, kind of in preparation for what we're going to be talking about today. and re-experience everything from not having played that game on the grassroots, like level 1 level for some time. And I mean, it still holds up. Nobody's ever going to say it doesn't, because it is still a wild ride from start to finish. Learning about Handsome Jack, going on that journey, being set up by him, and all the twists and turns that you kind of experience along the way. It's still, I love it. You can't not, because it's just such a well-rounded game on every level. Is there, and I go back to this because we'll talk about it in a little bit. I still remember some of the jank in that game, but that's part of the contribution of why we loved it so much, and why, and again, we'll talk about this in a bit, why I encourage developers to sometimes just let there be these things where there's just these little eccentricities, these little quirks, these little abilities, things that might have not have been intended, that players are just clever enough, because we're gamers and that's what we do, we solve puzzles, to take advantage of, but in ways that make the game more fun, even if they weren't necessarily intended. I think of like the Emulate glitch, for example. I think of all the times we would crawl through the environment in Raid on Digistruck Peak. Like, I'll use that as a good example here. And we're going back to Borderlands 2 here. The lesson, or rather, okay, let's talk about Raid on Digistruck. Raid on Digistruck Peak, for those who do not know and did not play Borderlands 2, was the way to unlock the overpowered levels, which are sort of like Mayhem levels, but in Borderlands 2. There were no modifiers to it other than damage, enemy health, and all of that would increase, but your level would not. But you could get overpowered weapons to kind of compensate for that, even though you were still suffering a damage reduction penalty for being effectively 8 to 10 levels below what was max level in these overpowered levels, which is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So in this raid on Digistruck Peak, you go through a series of events to get to a boss. It's a raid. And then you fight the boss, which is a series of binary code numbers, zeros and ones, which spells out, oh my God, what the hell, or OMG, WTH. And then you kill that. And then you do that again for overpowered 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, all the way up to 10 now. At level 8, you're guaranteed to get one of the first season pearlescent drops from oh my God, what the hell, which was really cool and a fun way for people who had never seen or experienced pearlescents before, because they just weren't lucky, to be able to get pearlescent weapons, which now, saying that out loud, I realize I probably just opened the floor for everybody to be like, we want pearlescents back. I'm sorry to Gearbox. I'm sorry to all of you. I didn't mean to restoke that fire, but I guess we're going there. My bad. So people didn't want to have to go through the entire raid in order to fight oh my God, what the hell. They just wanted to fight the boss. So several content creators, and I imagine a lot of enterprising people out there who were just gamers, found a way to crawl through the environment without having to do the raid itself and get to an area that was basically right next to the last boss, kill a bunch of enemies, and then go straight to oh my God, what the hell.
Yeah. Well,
remember that?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is still a thing, but it was even more of a thing back when Borderlands 2 was, like, back when Digistruck Peak came out, and during that whole there was like a whole era of video game time where people tried to find ways to get around things and break things, and just kind of like, like speedrunners have a mode, or like a game mode that they compete in called any percent, and any percent literally means get there however you want to, including glitches, like things you find, anything, crazy moves, anything like that. So there's like this culture of people that will find ways around the original intended method. And there's a place for that for sure. And I mean, I feel like maybe it's the kind of player I am. I prefer like the intended experience kind of more, but it's a video game, right? It's something that we all purchase and play to entertain ourselves and have a good time. So ultimately, however you enjoy doing it, as long as you're not hurting anyone or hurting anyone else's experience, in my personal opinion, it's all good.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of crazy, but also kind of cool that people found those ways around.
Right. And so I think this is a good actually segue into the article. It's almost like I'm good at my job, but unintentionally. That sounds about right. The lesson here is not that the developers and the gamers need to be antagonistic towards each other. I think that you have to do Digistruck Peak, those overpower levels 1 to 10 now, doing that and making players play that is a good thing to do, because that's what you do, right? You obtain that goal, you go through it. But once you're at that maximum level, then you should be able to do something. If you see all of your players sneaking through the environment because they want to skip all the garbage, by making them do all of the trash that they have to do to get there, they're not going to want to do it anymore. Those people who would just sneak through the environments, or they would just find a way to do it again. So what you could do is you give them the option. Either you can go directly to the boss, maybe you have to pay extra iridium, maybe you have to do something, some sort of goal, but you unlock it so you can go straight to the boss and farm the boss. Or you can make them go through the entire thing if they actually want to do the raid on Digistruck Peak. Options. That's what we're talking about here. And so that way the developer doesn't lose the vision of what they wanted, but the gamers and the people who are still playing the game get that immediacy effect of going in and farming and doing it over and over again and enjoying that core Borderlands gameplay loop that so many people have wanted.
Yeah, I super agree with you on all of that. I feel like more choices for gamers, more better, always. So
Yeah, and so that kind of segues into the article that I wrote the other day. Essentially, I'll kind of go through this, and I'm sure, Tess, you're going to have a lot to say about it too. Just because, I imagine you'll probably have some different opinions on it. We really haven't talked about it, between the two of us, which actually makes us really good.
yeah.
To have an open conversation about it here on the show. I noticed a while ago, I just had this fleeting thought that there were a lot of similarities in how Borderlands kind of learned certain lessons over the course of 3, and how they course corrected certain design ideas and really did the players right. And you can see that reflected in some things that I've seen, stats and metrics, that players are really enjoying Borderlands 3 now. And people are going to be like, oh, you're just saying that. No, you could look it up. I looked it up last week. The numbers are increasing, which is a really good thing for the game. It means that the changes are being well received and the direction it's going in is very good.
Yep.
And conciliatory language here, yes, Xbox is still having problems. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like there's a blind eye to that, because that would be disingenuous, and that's not me. But I can say that those things are being worked on. So unfortunately, that's the only update we can really provide on that.
Yeah.
That being said, I was reminded of another game that people might remember called Super Smash Brothers. It was a very competitive game, and there was a very passionate, hardcore element to that game as well. And back then, people were really into it because of its mechanics and stuff like that. But Nintendo, in its sequel, decided that they really didn't appreciate how that game was being received in a certain way. So they course corrected, but went in a different way. They said, oh, Smash is supposed to be a party game. It's supposed to be just for fun. Don't take it so seriously. But one thing that I think that they failed to recognize, and this is what we'll talk about this a little bit later, this is what Gearbox has recognized, is that there's always going to be a passionate, hardcore element to these games.
Yeah.
And when you make a game, you have to be able to appeal to both those who are just going to pick it up and play, and those people who are going to take that game super seriously and like love and defend this game and just be there all the time and like rep that game because that's their life. And that's great, because people being passionate about things is wonderful, and listening to talk about that passion is wonderful. That's why we have the show.
Yeah, I also, just like you said, that there shouldn't be like antagonism between developers and gamers, which is super true. Everybody's just trying to create and enjoy the creation together, right? That's silly when there is antagonism at all. But I think the same should be true, and unfortunately isn't always true, of like the casual and the hardcore. And I think you're absolutely right that there will always be people that just get really, really into it. That game, whatever game, whether it be Battleborn or Borderlands or Wonderlands eventually, or Smash or any game, I think there are always going to be people that game just fills a certain sort of need for them, a sort of it fits their favorite play style, or they just get really, really into it and they get really good at it. It just scratches that like gamer desire of theirs that they really have, and they get really, 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 really hardcore about it. And it's really, really cool when people are incredibly excellent at something and incredibly knowledgeable about it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. There's also absolutely nothing wrong with enjoying a game more casually and everything in between. There are so many people that only really have a chance to jump into Borderlands for a few hours a week, if that, and like those people deserve to enjoy the game just as much, and so do the really, really hardcore people. And it's really hard, I think, for developers to kind of try to make the game be awesome for both groups and everybody in the middle. But I really think that Gearbox has been trying so hard to do that. They've been trying, and I think they're largely successful, because right now both the casual and the hardcore are really happy, and it's really nice to see that, because they've been working on it so much. And they, I think, are one of the developers that really understand that exists, that there's every level of, and the hardcore community is amazing because it actually inspires the more casual among us, and it like encourages people to keep coming back to the game and try to do more interesting things with it and try to learn more and try to improve. Like it's like watching sport, watching the Olympics, right? Like I'm a runner and I watch the Olympics, and I will never be like those people, but it's still inspiring to me to like go on a run and try to do some faster miles, or maybe run in a race or whatever. It absolutely is a thing that somebody that's really excellent at whatever it is that you enjoy, whether it be a video game or a sport, inspires you to progress in the sport, to continue to do the sport. And it's just cool to see those people and see yourself in them, and see people be excellent at the thing that you love. And
Yes.
Borderlands is definitely a game that's like that. I think video games in general are things that are like that.
Yes. So circling back a little bit, what Nintendo did at this time is they put in this one particular mechanic where when you were running around with your character, you would trip and fall. So it made it a little bit difficult for players to take the game seriously, because if you have a 1% chance of falling on your face when you're about to do some cool attack, like it just kind of ruins it. So unfortunately, what happened in their community is it kind of like split in two. There were people who really enjoyed kind of the new direction of games when they released subsequent sequels, and then there were people who just loved playing Melee because it was Melee. And this is a fracture that we can kind of relate around to in Borderlands for a little bit right now. Because much like what happened in that community, Borderlands 2, to its credit, because it is just such an everlasting game at this point, it's still considered to be by some fans to be the pinnacle of the series. The loot distribution was on point, the content difficulty and the matchmaking, just to name a few things that people love about the game, and that's even before we talk about Handsome Jack, because everybody loved Jack. People wanted Borderlands 3 to kind of improve on a lot of those mechanics. And what happened, and I know we all remember this, when Borderlands 3 came out, I enjoyed the story, not without its flaws. Other people did not. And loot distribution was not nearly where it is now. So a lot of the difficulty was much lower. There was no invincible boss in that game. Your release goals were Brave Ward. It was Tyrene, because you could get a Kings and Queens call, and back then that gun was outrageously strong. Remember that?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot that people kind of felt iffy about doing, because there wasn't a lot for them to kind of adhere to as to what they were used to from Borderlands 2. And I think that was a design direction where they wanted more people to go out into the world and just kill enemies, and you would just get random drops, and whatever you got, you got. That was their design philosophy going into it back then. I don't know for sure, but that's just my interpretation of it based on how they created it. And through all of the conversations that all of you out there have had with Gearbox, that we have certainly had with Gearbox, we started to turn it around. The loot distribution is in much better shape now, right?
Yeah.
The difficulty is ramped up. Obviously, you can go watch Triple G, you can go watch Lazy, you can go watch Quag, you can go watch Moxie, you can go watch Thick Fillet, you can go watch Killer Six and Jolts, you can go watch everybody on the content creation team, and you can watch them steamroll. They pick up a Revolter. But you have to understand that we live in a bubble. We live in a ridiculous bubble where we know all of the top stuff, but for other people, Sponge Boss is still difficult.
Oh yeah.
Mayhem 2 and 3 are still difficult. And you might not realize it out there, all of you in TV land and radio land, that this actually could be considered to be hard content, but there are people that still struggle with it. And these are the casual folks who just want that challenge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there are actually a lot of people. I remember when I was, I think when we were doing that YouTube Borderlands stream that we did recently, and we were playing on Stadia, and it was a really good experience. We got to play with the community, and people in the chat were saying how they love playing with the streamers because a lot of the streamers have sort of the time and the, you know, not me, but a lot of other people have the skill to kind of help them progress past things that they had difficulty progressing through before. And definitely, like, there are people that haven't been able to finish the takedowns yet. So there's still there's tons of people that are actually still new to the game, and because there's always new people sort of grabbing it up and playing it. And there's tons of people that still haven't done some of the hardest content, and they go to streamers and they go to like Discord to try to get help. And it's really, really cool that there's this gamut of people out there. And the game addresses all of them because you absolutely can now with the loot distribution. Like, you can watch a video that Triple G made or that Moxie made, and you can go and get the items that will help you to progress beyond what you have been able to on your own. There's lots of really, really good tips and guides and things like that out there. So I think it's very satisfying to people that even if they're, you know, just sort of pick up and play style, they might be struggling, there's a direction to go in, right? And a way to improve, like a clear one.
I talk about him a lot. I'm gonna bring it up again because it reinforces the point you're talking about. Master G. I wouldn't be here without Master G, and I say that part because I was fortunate enough to figure out a certain combination that I guess wasn't very widely known back 8 years ago when that was still fresh content, when the first DLC had come out for Borderlands 2, Captain Scarlet's Booty Bay. If you pick up a big boom blaster, particularly one with immunity or resistance to corrosion, you get one of those and you pick up a longbow quasar, for example, or some sort of a longbow preferred, some sort of singularity grenade. It is so easy for you to go out and do Master G. You kill a worm, and instead of having to like backpedal and lead G through the acid pools, you just pulled him into one, and then he absorbed it. And that took out, eventually, it whittled him down and took out his impenetrable shield. Then he had his normal shield, and then he had his health bar, and you were dead. And so not many people at that time in the game had figured out that combination. So I was up at like midnight, 2 a.m, hanging out with the Australians and the European folks, teaching them how to do this combination so they could see Master G actually be beaten. Because to most people at that point, G was one of the most ridiculous like things to fight in the game. But when you break it down to its core elements, he's really easy. It's just a matter of repeating the same mechanic over and over again and not getting hit by a really slow rocket launcher. Unless it has that one weapon part and then it's really fast, but I can't help you there.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes things that seem easy to those of us that play a lot are actually not that easy at all when you're first starting out. We've just forgotten because we've played the game so much, you know. And somebody in chat, I think Pyrex actually in chat was saying how she played with somebody that hadn't played Borderlands 2 with somebody that hadn't played in a really long time, or hadn't played it yet, and she hadn't played in a really long time. And it was just very refreshing to see it through the eyes of someone new. And I remember having that experience from the side of being someone new when I first started streaming 7 years ago, because that's when I first played Borderlands 2. I had never played it. Tons of people had already played it, and they came into my chat and like played with me and helped me and showed me stuff. And it was so nice to feel so welcomed by that community, by this same community that now exists and plays Borderlands 3. It's really cool to be kind of on both sides of it, the newbie and the sort of, person that's addicted to it and plays it a lot. Yeah, it's cool.
It's the same way when my friends come over, and we play in the living room on my Xbox.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, yeah, again, we're having some of those issues that a lot of you out there, unfortunately, are also having. So believe me, I get it. But when we get lucky enough and it does work a little bit more in tune, it's interesting to watch how they interact with the environment versus how, someone like me, who's been playing for an actual eternity at this point, kind of approaches everything in Borderlands. You get to see so many different styles in play, even just having 3 buds with you in person and the like in-person communication. It's like, I just threw a grenade over there. Oh, I'm bringing out Iron Bear. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. It's a lot of fun. And it makes me wish that the multiplayer was a little bit more in line with what we're looking for, which is, again, a finger crossed hope for Wonderlands when that comes out too.
Yeah, super, super excited for, oh my God, multiplayer in Wonderlands. I'm psyched. I'm sure that things are being worked on behind the scenes. It's just the process for putting out fixes for any kind of, console specific bugs is very, very complicated. So patience.
Yeah.
Patience.
When Borderlands 3 released, obviously we had extremely loathsome antagonists. I know, Tess, you abhor, and that's to use a very nice word there, Tyrene.
Yes.
Yeah. And so that was kind of a difference from Jack. Jack did really shitty things, but he was that love to hate kind of guy, which, I mean, that's always a mark of a really, really well crafted antagonist. Somebody that you know what it is? It's like in Marvel, Thanos. It's like, oh, obviously he's the worst thing ever, but he kind of has a point, even if I don't want to admit it. And you definitely shouldn't do that because that makes you the most evil person in the galaxy. It's like one of those things, right? And so that was Handsome Jack. Like, Handsome Jack was like, I want to get rid of all the bandits on Pandora. But what was the downfall? The downfall was everybody he didn't like was labeled a bandit, which makes him a ridiculously awful tyrant. And also, don't kill people, even though we do it all the time. We do. We kill a lot of people.
Yeah, it's true.
It's true. But, they started it because they run it out with buzz axes. So, you know what? Maybe it's kind of, there's an on balance here. Ultimate Vault Hunter wasn't in Borderlands 3, which is a move I support. So was Slag. But that was removed in favor of Radiation, which Radiation is my favorite element. I think, Tess, you're a big fan of it as well.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's kind of the go-to, like, if I can't do fire, and my main Moe's character does fire and radiation, and it's just, yeah.
You know what? In your head right now, you're thinking of the sound that it makes when an enemy explodes.
Yeah.
Right? Quag and I are just nodding, in sync right now because we're just like, we know what that's like. I supported all these things, and Overpowered was replaced by Mayhem mode, which I really liked, actually. Mayhem 1.0. The only thing I didn't like about it, 2 things. One, you couldn't re-roll without having to just restart the game, which was just a pain. And then the other thing, more important thing, is I hate bullet reflection. I think everybody who's played Borderlands 2 and early 3 are all in agreement that bullet reflection is just the worst.
Yeah.
Because there's no mitigating factor to it, and you can't control whether or not it actually happens. So if you get if you just get unlucky and you get a string of bullet reflections, you feel bad. It just feels bad.
Yeah. I mean, it's the whole finding a way to add challenge in interesting ways. Yes. But that are still satisfying. And I feel like that's such a challenge for game developers, because just bumping up health bars is one way to do it, right? Having multiple enemies show up that surprise you is another way to do it, which is cool. I like those methods a little bit better. I hate when things reflect back at you, because that just makes it so incredibly difficult. Because all of this damage that you're trying to put out just comes back at you, and you have to not only put out a massive amount of damage, but you also have to try to tank a massive amount of damage yourself. I think I hate immunity phases more. I think I would prefer reflection rather than immunity, because at least you could do something about the reflection, but it's so hard. So yeah, I'm glad that they sort of have gone the way that they've gone with Borderlands 3, I think, in terms of that.
If I can, we're talking about design philosophy real quick. This actually raises a really good question that I just want to pose to you real quick. We can talk about G, because G has an immunity phase, but it's different, where you have to do a mechanic in order to remove the immunity phase. And then I was like, well, what's a more contemporary example? Captain Haunt. Captain Haunt has an immunity phase, but you have to do something to remove that immunity phase. If you're active during a forced immunity phase and you have to do something to remove that, does that feel more comfortable to you than just, a forced one in general, or do you just not like any immunity phases whatsoever in Borderlands?
If there's stuff that you have to do during an immunity phase that feels better, yes, absolutely. As long as it's stuff that's like fun and challenging, as opposed to, I mean, it's still an interruption, right? So anything that like interrupts the combat experience can be a little bit
challenging.
It's just, I mean, you feel that disruption, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not. It just depends on what it is that you have to be doing, right? And like what it feels like. This happens a lot in other games, I think, and I've experienced it a lot. And I do like it as long as there's something else you have to be doing. But sometimes it's nice to just be able to like power through that immunity phase. Like I think the little bit of a hardcore person within me, the hardcore player within me, really likes the potential to like muscle past that immunity phase. If there's a chance, like you just have to do such an overwhelming amount of damage that, it's ridiculous. Like you have to do something crazy, or you have to do some kind of move or like hit them in a certain specific spot. And if you can do that, you can like just ignore the immunity phase or not have one. That's really satisfying because that gives you something really challenging to like try to make happen. Stuff like that is always cool. If it's too easy though, then it defeats the purpose of the immunity phase entirely. So
it's one of those where you brought up a good thing and now I've got the examples ready in my brain. 2 bosses from Borderlands 2 that come to mind here that have immunity phases that you can muscle through if you're smart. But it's not really an immunity phase in the second one, but you'll see where I'm going in a second.
Okay.
Hyperius, Veracitus.
Yeah, you're right.
Hyperius, when you started the fight, if you went absolutely bananas with a Norfleet and had a certain build, you could power him down. Or when we had Immolate Glitch Maya, you could power him down. Or if you got really lucky with Salvador money shots in the interfacer and crit, you could power him down. Or if you set up Boar, you're just the best with 0 because Boar is just a lot of fun to use. But if you didn't, he got his bullet reflection shield, and then you actually had to do the mechanics of the fight. So when you're talking about muscling through, there you go.
Yeah, those are good examples. And yeah, like anything that has that challenge, like you could still beat the boss if like if you don't have a super OP build, if it's your first time, or you just want to kind of chill with it. You don't have to muscle through at all. You don't have to do that. It's not impossible to just fight the traditional way. It's just cool to have that option for the hardcore people. It's that satisfying both groups kind of thing. So yeah, it's good. It's good when they do that.
I'm not sour on people who go back and play Borderlands 2, because I feel like some people who hear me talk or like read this article might have been worried, and I address this in it. I'm not mad if somebody goes back to play Borderlands 2, because I spend a lot of time every year replaying all of my favorite games, GoldenEye, Half-Life, Borderlands 2 even. I'm literally playing it again right now. I do those things every year because they're my classics and I love those games. If you do it because you love it, there's no problem here. What the crux of what I'm trying to get at is Borderlands 2 has changed, or rather Borderlands 3 has changed so immensely. People were asking for several things. They were asking for Gearbox to stop nerfing things so egregiously. But looking at the numbers, as we've pointed out several times in this program, the percentage of changes to the game as of this past May was almost 90% in favor of buffs as opposed to nerfs.
Yeah.
It's really hard to claim with any sort of integrity that Gearbox just wantonly nerfs everything. And the problem goes back to the unfortunate reality of launch and how Gearbox nerfed a lot of things early. And it set this really bad stigma for Borderlands 3 that Gearbox has worked very hard now to kind of reverse course on. And instead of nerfing things, they're making increasingly difficult challenges for people and then buffing various gear items as a result, and then giving us more power in our skill trees.
Yeah.
So that kind of frustrates me. And then we talk about loot distribution. Obviously, on launch, loot distribution was not in a place where it should be, but most named enemies now have loot assigned to them. Some of them have several drops assigned to them, so you can go back and farm them over and over again. And it's not necessarily a guaranteed drop every time. Sometimes I'll go and I'll farm it, and maybe I'll get 1 drop in 3, 1 drop in 5. And it might not even be remotely what I want, but if it's close to it, I can always take it to the reroller now for the anointments. So it really helps make the game have that longevity that I think people are looking for. It's hard to say that loot distribution isn't in a better spot because we had the hunt. You can't do an event like the hunt without that.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think it's in a really good place now. I think most people feel that way, that it's in a much better place than it was. It's still in a good place. It is now in a good place. And they've put out so many updates. I don't think people like realize how well supported this game has been and continues to be and will continue to be. They've said it many, many times. They're not like gonna stop trying to improve. They're constantly working on it, which is so amazing to see. Like 2 years later, it's incredible.
Yeah, and so to that point and elaborating on it, we have endgame replayability. So now you have the ability to just farm and farm and farm as much as you possibly want to target what you specifically want to do. And then once you get those things, well, now you have to have something to do. You know, Borderlands 2, I mathed it out. This is a rough estimate. I went mostly from memory, but I also looked on the wiki because I needed to cheat a little bit here. Because the definition of what's considered a boss is a little flexible. But in terms of raid bosses, there were 11. In terms of bosses, there were 24. Borderlands 3 has at least 36. And while only one of them is considered a traditional raid boss, which is Hemo/Hemo Vermi, depending on your Mayhem difficulty level, the other 35 are still pretty challenging, unless your name is Lazy Data. 4 of them are in takedowns, 6 of them are in proving grounds, 2 of them are from the seasonal events that are now permanently unlocked, 3 are in the slaughter events, and then the rest are being like main game DLC bosses. So like at every step of the way, even if you just have the base game, you don't even need the DLCs, you've got a lot of replayability for all of the things that you're looking to do and kill in this game. And it might be easier, but I just want to point out real quick, in Borderlands 2, this shit was easy now too. You pick up Deputy Sal and go money shot something and it dies immediately. Where's the difficulty you're looking for? It's not in 2. And I don't know why some people say, oh, Borderlands 2 is more difficult. It wasn't. Vora was just ridiculously hard. And after that, it was Dexy, the human wall, even though it wasn't human. And then, what is it, Pete? You going to tell me Pete was difficult? Come on. I've been in the game too long. Don't lie to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think if people go back and play from the beginning, like fresh without sort of, I mean, part of it is also like if you go back and you've played the game before, you have a lot of more knowledge of what to do and what works and what doesn't work, and you don't. It's almost like sneaky knowledge because you don't realize
sneaky knowledge. I like that.
It's literally just like sneaky knowledge because you don't realize that you know the routes to take and you know the things to get, and sometimes some of the things are hard to get, but some of them are not that hard to get. And that's true of Borderlands 3 as well. You know now when you play Borderlands 3 what the dedicated loot drops are. Like if you've been playing this whole time, especially, you know a lot of the routes to take. You know a lot of the items that are currently like the best, and there's specific ways to get those items, and you can go and do that. So it might feel easier in some ways, but it's actually not. Yep. Like if you were to play fresh and you forgot everything that you knew, it would be incredibly difficult. And this is clear from all of the people that are picking the game up that are new to it, and they're like, "Oh my god, this is incredibly difficult." So it's a thing.
Yeah. And not only that, but let's point this out here too. Arms race. I know it's a bit divisive, but I think a lot of people have really warmed up to it after a time.
Yeah.
And they've kind of been like, okay, well, we do wish that we had action skills. We do wish that we had a few more options, but what we're enjoying right now is this fun mode where you just drop in, you get the guns you get, and you just got to make it work. And
Yeah.
there is a lot of inherent replayability to it. And I know there's a big discussion, I guess we'll save this for another day, about modding Arms Race to do certain things, but I actually kind of want to talk with Gearbox a little bit more about that and kind of get their thoughts on it. Because I've been of the mind where it's kind of like Lilith chests, which was a big thing back in the day. But that's a whole can of worms for a completely different day.
Yeah.
Because it's a very complex conversation with no clear answer.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the problem there, I think we should address it. I don't think we should shy away from it. I do think that the main problem there is the extraction stuff, right? So like playing it and having it be a different experience and potentially a better experience thanks to mods is one thing. Playing it on stream and using mods to kind of artificially, provide something for viewers in a way that isn't necessarily the way the game was intended to be played. That's kind of the questionable part. So I feel like there should be a way to turn off the extraction, and then people could just play how they want with cool mod, and they could even bring viewers into their games and play their modded game, and maybe the viewer has a chance to get the cool thing themselves that way, and that's much better than just like extracting stuff for everybody that's modded. You know what I mean? So there's definitely a fine line there, and it's such a gray area. There's no clear answer. You're absolutely right, but I
Right.
do feel like the extraction is kind of the sticking point that makes things difficult there. So I love the
Ultimately,
fact that we can have that extraction in the base vanilla version of the game. I think it's awesome, but it would be kind of cool if there was a way to turn it off.
yeah. Ultimately, it's a question that we can go back and forth about our comfort levels, but it boils down to what Gearbox feels about it.
Yeah.
And so I hope we do hear some sort of clear answer from them rather, on the subject soon. But you have Mayhem 2.0. You have 11 levels of Mayhem now. And now the unlaunch was level 50. Now it's level 72. It's kind of hard for me to really say the game is lacking an endgame at this point. I know it might not be, some people are saying, oh, it's a little bit easier. I don't necessarily see that, especially Guardian Takedown. It really, there's a lot to do. And it might still be a little bit easier, but that's also because a lot of us are so well versed in it at this point that we're able to kind of like cruise through it. Not everybody's there.
Yeah, the vast majority of people are not there. That's the truth.
Right.
It's just those of us that are hard. I don't even know if I qualify as truly hardcore, but I feel like just because I've been streaming it and playing it so much that because I don't endeavor necessarily to do the hardest things in the game all the time, but I can do them all. I have done them all just by virtue of playing so much and also being inspired by all of my really, really OP friends, right? So I don't think that those of us that can do these things realize how much easier it all is for us because we've been playing it this whole time, and for the very, very many people that have been playing it much more casually than us this whole time and much more are much more new to it because a lot of people have jumped in every time there's a new big patch, every time there's a new big DLC, people have been jumping in and are still jumping in, and to those people it's incredibly difficult. So we're like privileged because we play so much, so it is a thing. I do think that for the really, really, really hardcore among us, it would be cool if there were added challenges, but that I think that they probably have a variety of priorities, and fixes are really high up on that list, I would guess, at least. And then who knows what'll happen. Like I said, they have said that they will keep supporting this game and keep iterating and keep updating. So, keep voicing your opinions in a mature and constructive way. and they are listening. They always listen in streams, in the Discord, on Reddit, on Twitter, all these places. So, if you have an opinion, a strong opinion about the game, as long as you present it in a way that's, constructive and positive, and not just like your Gearbox is listening.
Yeah. Or yell at me on Twitter. I can handle it. It's fine. So to kind of summarize here, I'll actually read directly from my final 2 paragraphs here. Is Borderlands 3 without a flaw? No. It's a very flawed game in some respects, but so was Borderlands 2. It's not necessarily in the same ways, but both games have their positive aspects as well as their negative ones. And my point isn't to bash Borderlands 2 so that players would just flock to Borderlands 3, because that's definitely not going to work, because who would listen to me? Because that would do also a severe injustice to Borderlands 2, as it is and always will remain one of my favorite games of all time, and one that I owe my career to. That's a true statement. What I'm trying to get in here is that I found that many players are acting upon and speaking out using what is, at this point, outdated information. And that's the unfortunate trap that other games have done before, much like we talked about at the top of the show, Smash, and that Gearbox unintentionally created when Borderlands 3 was released. But they've been walking that back. It's a trap that's exceedingly difficult, but not impossible for a game to dig itself out from. And beginning that excavation process starts with education, which is why I wrote the article in the first place. My goal is not to dissuade people from playing Borderlands 2 if you truly love that game. The beauty of gaming is we can always go back and revisit those classics. But if you're a fan of the series and you're refusing to pick up Borderlands 3 because of what it looked like on release, I'm imploring you to please give the game a second look, because you may find yourself pleasantly surprised at all there is to actually do. Those are the kinds of people that I wrote this article for. Those are the people that I'm trying to reach out to. Not necessarily those of you who've been playing the game forever and ever and ever, but there's a contingent of people right now who just don't want to play Borderlands 3 because of what it looked like almost 2 years ago now. And what it looked like then versus what it looks like now, all the things, not all, but the vast majority of the issues that we had with the game then have been completely alleviated. Graham and his team have done an incredible job making the game look like what their vision was and what we came to expect of a Borderlands game based on our interpretations of 2 and 1. So those are the kinds of people that I'm trying to talk to when I wrote this article. And, I still see the comments from people now and again who are like, I don't get it. It's not necessarily an article for you because you've been playing all this time. You've experienced all of this. Not everybody has. A lot of people walked away, and I want them to come back and try it now and give me that honest feedback about it. If it really has improved, maybe it hasn't. There could be people out there who can make a compelling argument how it hasn't, but I would be hard pressed to see that.
I feel like that would be a hard argument to make. Maybe that's just I'm biased, but
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with you that I do think there are people that are missing out there if they haven't tried it since the beginning, because it really has grown so much in leaps and bounds in a really good way.
Yeah. So that's all I have to say about that. I think it's probably about time that we hit the old dusty trail. But Tess, thank you so much for talking about this article with me. I really enjoyed having that back and forth with you as well. A lot of insights and a lot of good memories that you conjured up based on some of those conversations too. Oh man, 2 and 3 in the morning, doing Master G. Those were good times.
Yeah. Borderlands 2 is a wonderful game. Borderlands 1 was a wonderful game. I wouldn't be here. I think neither of us would be here if not for Borderlands 2. Or Borderlands 3, because Borderlands 3 is amazing, especially now, and it's worth, like, if people, I don't want the people that loved the franchise and had really good experiences in the previous games to miss out on the amazingness that is Borderlands 3, because it really is a lot of the best of the franchise. The gunplay and the movement are still, in my opinion, some of the best in modern shooter games. Like, of all the other games out there, this gunplay, this movement is chef's kiss. It's really, really, really on point, and just one of my all-time favorites. And all of the sort of structure of the game has improved so much. So yeah, definitely agree on that point. worth the look-see again if you haven't come back in a while.
And if you disagree, like I said before, and we'll do the plugs in a little bit too, at Mitsu Show on Twitter. You can, I always check the YouTube comments section for a couple days, so I'll probably be poking my head around to see what people really think about this. Let me know. You know, I'm open to having those discussions as long as you like show respect. I will show respect for you, because we can have respectful disagreements about these things, and maybe you'll say something that'll make something go off in my head, and I'll change my opinion. Or maybe, you know, I'll bring up a point that you didn't consider out there, faceless person that I'm just talking to, I guess. And you might learn something too. But that's the point of having an open and respectful dialogue, which is kind of what we're about here in the Bordercast. That's just what we like to do.
Yeah. You guys, speaking of that, thank you for joining us here. Thank you for having really good conversations with us on Twitch and YouTube and Steam and Facebook and Twitter and all these cool locations. We love chatting with you guys about it. Discord, if you want to check out the Borderlands Discord, there's a ton of really, really amazing people in there that chat about Borderlands all the time. I lurk in there a lot. I'm sorry, I'm a terrible lurker. But it's just discord.gg/Borderlands. You can also catch up on all the latest news on mentalmars.com. And stop by here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. We're here chatting with you guys about all the things Borderlands. So thank you so much for joining us. If you want to check out the podcast version of the podcast version of the Bordercast, my brain, I'm sorry. Definitely check us out on Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes, TuneIn, YouTube Music, and Stitcher. And we'll see you guys next week. Thank you very much.
Yep. Real quick, where can the people find you, Tess?
Oh yes, I knew I was forgetting something. Tessichka on Twitch. It's Tessa CHKA. Tess Games on Twitter and Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok coming soon.
Coming soon.
Yeah. What about you, Mitsu?
Oh, at Mitsu Show, like I've been talking about, MITSUSHOW. If you want to yell at me on Twitter, I'm always watching because I literally have it open all the time on one monitor, which is probably not good for my mental health or whatever. And of course, twitch.tv/Mitsu, MITSU, in the off chance that I will actually be streaming on my account. Although I will be live for my wife's birthday on her Twitch channel, twitch.tv/brofishtv, BROFISH TV. That's August 2nd. I'm very excited to be there with her when that happens, but that's a little ways out. I, of course, have the Medium article, which Tess was kind enough to link. I imagine it'll be included in podcast descriptions and anything for those of you who want to read. And of course, like I said, leave me comments, you know, mention me on Twitter. We can open that dialogue, and I would love to have it with all of you. I will not be present on next week's show. Unfortunately, Tess will be flying solo, although we're going to try and find her some really cool guests to join. And then afterwards, when I return, I think I'm going to try and get a few new folks on here. Tess and I have some ideas. I think I just came. Excuse me, I'm all burpy all of a sudden. Wow, unprofessional. To have on the program when I'm live from the Great White North. So we'll see how that goes.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We super, super, super appreciate you.
Yes, on behalf of Tess, myself, and the entire content creation team, thank you for joining us every single week. Now go forth and make some mayhem.